My Gavana Melanin. So today's video is all about the prism consciousness of mankind. It dawned on me, and it's been a thought that has been going around in my mind for a long time about the idea of how does consciousness relate to humanity and to our universe, and what is this about the indigo children, and what is this about, the crystal, and all of this type of idea about how there's a group of people that represent a certain conscious level. So I actually came up with this drawing to show you a little bit more about my idea. I'm a very visual person, so I had to kind of represent it through a drawing. But what I want to show you is that over here, we have the pure consciousness, which is basically what we would think of what God is. And it's white light, and I just kind of put some pink just to represent the love frequency, which I will get into later. But it's white light that is coming in to a prism. And the prism is our universe and our matter that we experience and we see. But on the opposite side of matter is this etheric or spiritual world also that we experience, felt as emotions within our bodies. So then we see that we have fragmented consciousness. So we have the pure consciousness that goes into this prism of matter in the universe. And once it goes into the matter of the universe, it becomes fragmented. And so it comes out this way. And what I want to explain is that I figured out, I'll go this way, I figured out what these different types of group consciousness actually mean, and what it truly means to be an indigo child, and what that all kind of relates to. So if you think about these in stages of humanity as a species, in the very first stage of mankind, Adam and his people and the tribes of people that were here, they were in the survival mode, which is base chakra, trying to establish their roots on earth and trying to establish themselves. It's even just to be able to survive. So this was the survival chakra consciousness that the very first primitive beings were at. Later on, it moves into this orange, which is the sacral chakra, which is all about reproduction. So this was the reproduction of the human species. And then we move into the yellow, which is all about the solar plex area, which is the yellow consciousness, the solar plex consciousness that is symbolized in power and establishing esteem. So you have the younger species of mankind starting to establish themselves as civilizations that have power structures within those civilizations. So this is where kings were established, and you had different levels of social classes established. This was when power started to become the #1 priority for humanity, and they warred against one another, and they kept warring against one another until we had a catalyst for change, which is Jesus Christ. Now, Jesus is actually the representation of the heart chakra opening for humanity, and that is very much what it means. Jesus is the way, the truth, the light. That idea is on a spiritual level, that when you follow the teachings of Jesus, you are embracing that change and that catalytic event in humanity that shows a heart opening of the human species. Once that heart opened, this is when these higher vibration frequencies could come into this world and be experienced in the human experience. So after Jesus, then we had many, many years of the heart chakra opening, and people were trying to explain all these spiritual miracles and things that they were feeling inside that Jesus, as a master teacher, brought to humanity. So then we get into this area here of the blue ray, which is the throat consciousness, throat chakra area, which represents the expression. So this is where we start to have religion start to be recorded in a sense, and spoken about more. There was more stories and poems and things that would explain the spiritual world a bit more. You can even call this possibly the Enlightenment era if you want. And this is where we start having the Renaissance era of humanity, where basically humans were finally able to get the capacity to understand and to speak about what it is that they were feeling and experiencing through the heart chakra opening of humanity. And then we have, after the blue ray, the indigo consciousness. And that happened about probably starting, I would say, maybe in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. These are your 80s babies. I'm an 80s baby as it is. What that means is that they are already kind of imprinted with that in their blueprint to have that frequency. They come into the world already with that vibration, that frequency. So it's very easy for them to kind of have perceptions beyond seeing what's in front of them and to be in touch with their psychic abilities, their ability to know things that cannot be known. And so this is why these particular souls have that ability, because they are born in a time when consciousness is going already in this cycle of awakening. So the pure consciousness is already in cycle of awakening, moving towards basically waking up itself from this symbiotic dream that we're all part of. So that's what the indigo consciousness is. They are the system buster, the old system busters. They are here to kind of fix some of the mistakes that happened throughout the early ages of humanity and show new perspectives and new ways, because they can finally see the truer divine nature of things and understand that true reality that lies beyond this veil. So that actually means that every single soul that is born during these times, they all have that dormant ability within them encoded in their DNA blueprint. But it's up to the individual to actually to activate it and to awaken it. So basically, everybody who's born in the 80s, everybody who's born from the 60s, 70s, 80s, that time period of really awakening within and seeing the divine truth of truer nature and reality, they all have that potential. And so it is really about each individual journey to awaken to that potential. Now, we are actually entering into violet consciousness now. And violet consciousness is the divine connection to all things. My theory is that because we are awakening into this love frequency, this very high vibrational state of frequency that is coming into waves into our atmosphere and into our earth and affecting our consciousness, is that love, unity, peace, divine connection, interconnection is playing out a very big theme in humanity today. So most people are awakening into violet consciousness. Those newer souls that were born during this time, not new in the terms of energy, we are all ancient energy, but the souls that are born now on earth and have been from the, I would say, 90s and up, then these already have that violet frequency within them, in their blueprint. It is all about activating it and bringing forth that new perspective. And so no one stays at these consciousness levels. It's just how you were born and at a certain time that aligns to the cycle of creation and how there was this plan already unfolding to have every species get better and better and more aware and more awake. And eventually they live out in this place of interconnection, unity, peace, and understanding they're each connected to the divine. And so what will happen is we are now transitioning into violet consciousness. More and more people are awakening into violet consciousness state. And we have a lot of young people that actually we can thank because they're bringing that to the forefront. You have little children that are speaking some immense wisdom about love, truth, unity, peace. And so when we listen to these newer souls that are coming in, this is what's going to help to bring forth that new perspective of how to live more peacefully with one another. And I have wonderful news, because after violet consciousness, we go back to that white, pure light, which doesn't look like white right now, but on my drawing, but it is. It's supposed to be a pure light, not even a color, because white's not really a color. It's just brightness. So we're going to all go back to this eventually. So what that means is, and I cannot tell you exactly when that will happen, but that is the apocalypse. That is the ending to the story of mankind. That is closing up the story of a great book, in a sense. And 0 point is when all the consciousness levels come together into that pure state of consciousness, of the God consciousness, back into the source that it came from. And that is the collapse of the universe. I just looked it up just to make sure, once again, yes, our universe is expanding at extremely rapid rates. NASA has said that our universe is expanding at much faster rates than it ever has been. And eventually it will collapse back into its single point of wherever it came from, in a sense. So this is really a tool to understand how does the spiritual consciousness work along with the matter and the universe. The matter and the universe, the physical universe that we experience, is really just a way to experience different and variety and fragmentation from the oneness. Because outside of the universe, outside of time, outside of physical matter, there is only pure consciousness and oneness and unity. There is only that. So the physical universe is a way to experience fragmentation for a temporary time, until it is time to bring all pieces back together again and back into the state that exists before this creation. And I believe that this pure consciousness, that is God, is infinite. Energy is infinite and will create again and again and again. So very, very much like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was right on with that our universe is created again and again. There is no real ending. There is only an ending to species and to the story of those species within that physical universe. But really, this is all an illusion anyway. And really, what is the true reality is this, pure consciousness. So I hope that this gave you a little bit more understanding of what it really means to be a blue ray, as far as a way shower, a indigo, as far as an old system buster, to break down the patterns of the old system that became corrupted and manipulated over time. And then the violet ray consciousness, which is the divine connection, which is unconditional love and spiritual unity. This right here is where humanity is at. And that is why people are experiencing such an amazing time of awakening and enjoying the awakening together. We have Jesus as a divine creation from the pure oneness to be a catalyst for that. As soon as Jesus came into our world, that started a series of events that would funnel in this new consciousness. Now, something to note, as well as having a group soul consciousness that humanity does experience at times with waves hitting the earth and updating and upgrading it and elevating their consciousness, bringing them into new dimensions of reality, basically, you also have individual journeys in which you start out here in the root chakra, and you have to go through your life learning how to navigate these areas of your energy centers and opening these up, allowing that full divine energy, the Kundalini rising, to come through and to balance all your chakra areas. So on top of having a universal consciousness experience, you are also having an individual experience of experiencing your own individual stories of awakening each chakra level. And when you get to violet consciousness, you stay there. And you may tend to revert back into these areas here, and you can play with them. You have what's called an elevator consciousness, in a sense, where you can choose to go up and go down and experience different levels of being. But once your violet consciousness is truly open, once your crown chakra is truly opened and you really experience that oneness with the divine, then you know how to always kind of get back. And so that's what I mean when I said that once you awaken, you cannot lose that awakening. You can never really go back to sleep because that crown chakra has been opened. And so it's like turning a light on that just never can be turned back off. Now, the symbol of the Illuminati is interesting because I want to show you the symbol. Of course, they chose the pyramid because that is a sacred shape that represents the prism, and the ancient Egyptians knew that, and the Illuminati they knew that as well. And what they do is they put their eye on top because they view themselves as the masters of the physical universe and that they are in charge. And that's because they don't really understand this. They don't really understand this. They only see the fragmentation. They are stuck in the physical universe that they have to master. They have to have all the money. They have to have all the control because they only see the fragmentation. They do not yet see the unity. They do not yet see that all of those masses that they try to dominate and control, they do not yet see them as part of the pure consciousness state. When they do, when your controllers, in a sense, when those who are ruling this world in terms of their control over societal organizations and corporations, when they awaken and they reach violet consciousness, this is when your species, your entire human species, will live out in this pure state. And it's not that it will end. It will be a new beginning, and that's really what the apocalypse kind of means. It's like it's a new beginning into a new earth. This is where higher dimensional entities live, basically, in their experience, like the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and the Sirians. They understand this, and they can experience this at the same time. So they can experience variety and being different, but they also have this in mind as well. The problem is that when people forget this, all they see is basically chaos, differences, and that's when you have people really stuck in their own individual egos. So once your whole species moves into this, which is coming, because it's after violet consciousness, it goes into the cycle. You can't go back as a species. You know, once people awaken into violet consciousness, you're not going to go back to just learning how to survive and establish your roots. You're done. That was ancient beings that already are moving on. So now you are here. You are here in the 2000s. So you only have this to go to. And the most amazing thing is that your life still continues here. It just gets better. More possibilities are open to you, and the dream continues in a sense where you can create anything that you want and wish to see. And you can live out in unity, harmony, and peace with one another and total respect. And it's just an amazing, joyous experience in dance. So I hope that that explained how humanity is going through their transitional stages, and each stage is a consciousness level, but each individual also experiences consciousness levels. So in a way, it's like fractals in a sense, where you have one part break off and then there's smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller parts to it. And it just goes on for infinity. And that's exactly what souls are. They are in the image of God. And so if they are in the image of God, they are reflecting that fragmentation, but really they come from that oneness. And so this is the illusion. So once you get past seeing only the matter and physical matter of the universe, that's when the illusion starts to break down for you. And you start to see the real truth of this. You start to see the pure consciousness of love, of unity and harmony. And you start to have your life play out as that experience. And it is a wonderful, joyful experience. For anyone who is entering into these stages of awakening and want to meet more people who are, please join the Facebook group, the Violet Consciousness Awakening. And that is for those that are in their Christ consciousness awakening. Basically, they are rising into that place of connecting to the divine and seeing interconnection with all things. I'll put a link in the description for you so that you can join others on the Facebook group. And that is a really wonderful way of you just meeting and being able to talk to others that are experiencing that violet consciousness awakening as well. So go ahead and leave any questions that you have. I'll be happy to answer them. I know that this might be confusing at first. This has taken me time to grasp and to understand how things are one, but they are also many at the same time. And so please leave your comments below, and I will be happy to answer any comments that you have. If you want help individually with your chakras and to help balance them and to get that crown chakra to open up for you finally, then please contact me and we will have a personal session set up so that I can meet with you on Skype online and talk to you about how to open up those chakra levels and to make sure that you have that balance going on so that you can live out your life in violet consciousness, because it is a potential for all beings on earth at this time. That is the timeline that we are at within the species, and everything just gets much better afterwards. And as soon as we relinquish the control by those that cannot see that pureness, that pure consciousness and oneness that all the masses and all the beings and everybody in the universe come from, as soon as we get rid of that blindness within their hearts and within their minds, that is when your world will change for the better. And it will be like living in a community of the high elves, basically, of where everybody will be in total respect with one another and understanding of one another and know exactly where people are coming from. Now, to some people, it might sound a little boring to them. I've heard some comments, well, oh, if everything's peaceful and full of harmony, it might be boring. But no, I mean, we're still going to have our differences. We're still going to have our exciting, times of debate and discussion and seeing different perspectives. But at least there won't be this blindness that is going on where people kill each other for their differences, or they hurt each other, or they try to take advantage of others because they see themselves as better than others. We're not going to have that anymore, because people will understand that they are not different from one another. There is no need to harm one another for their differences. And so that truth is going to really catapult humanity into a stage of living out their rest of their existence in a very peaceful way. And as the universe collapses, I don't know if necessarily we will experience it as a full ending of this universe. It might just be like we're going to sleep and then we wake up and a new dream begins again. I cannot answer that. That is something that is beyond my ego self here on earth right now. But I can tell you that we are absolutely speeding up, and the universe is going to collapse into itself one day. And that, to me, is a positive because of awakening into my violet consciousness. I understand what that truly means, is that everything that has been fragmented and divided will come back together. And that's kind of what I was talking about with the video about the 1111 meaning. It is a sign to know that the unification process is going on, and it's calling everybody back. And those who see that 1111, they are souls that are starting to recognize that divine pattern within, starting to recognize that interconnection to others, and are starting to awaken up from the dream of fragmentation. And that's really what the dream is. The dream is about, if I had to say what a theme, it would be fragmentation, making everything that comes from oneness into many. That is the dream. That is the illusion. The true reality is that it's only oneness. And that's where we come from. So when you show appreciation, when you show love and respect, when you bow down and worship, when you pray, whatever you do in order to honor that oneness, you are honoring the oneness of that entire universe, and you are pulling it more into your reality of understanding your own oneness with everything. So the more that you connect to this pure oneness consciousness, the more you embrace the pure oneness consciousness within. And that's very important for your own life, to experience great joy and happiness and inner peace. And that really is the key to elevating yourself above all of your earthly problems that happen within the illusion of the physical universe. You need to always remember your spiritual self, your etheric body, that you really are just pure consciousness that has been fragmented for a temporary time. So Hananle for watching. I look forward to answering any of your questions that you may have in the comments below.